The transition was not subtle. One moment their boots were scraping against the rough, graffiti-stained concrete of the Eagle's Nest ruins. The next, they were swallowed by the suffocating embrace of the Atlantic forest. The noises of the favela, the erratic gunfire, the distant screams of the captured, the mechanical thump of the police helicopters didn't stop, but they changed. They became muffled, distant, like the soundtrack of a nightmare occurring in another room. Here, under the ancient canopy, the soundscape was dominated by the relentless rhythm of water hitting leaves, the slide of mud, and the ragged, terrified breathing of the boy. Mateo moved with a low center of gravity, his rifle held tight against his chest to keep the mechanism dry. The FNFAL was heavy, a burden of steel and wood that felt like an extension of his own exhausted limbs. He stopped near the twisted trunk of a massive jackfruit tree, its rotting fruit adding a sickly, sweet stench to the smell of wet earth. He signaled for Leo to halt. The boy collided with the tree, his legs trembling violently. Leo wasn't looking at the path ahead. His eyes were wide, white discs in the gloom, staring back the way they had come, back toward the glow of the burning city, back toward the bodies of the butchers they had left behind. "Stop looking back," Mateo whispered, his voice barely audible over the rain. He grabbed Leo's shoulder, his grip firm, but not cruel. "There is nothing back there but ghosts and ash. You look back, you fall. You fall, we die." Leo nodded, a jerky, spasmodic motion. "The dogs," the boy stammered, his teeth chattering. "I heard dogs before we hit the tree line. Big ones." Mateo had heard them too. The Third Command didn't just bring soldiers, they brought trackers. Men who hunted people for sport in the Bachata Flats were now unleashed on the hill. But dogs were a problem Mateo could solve. It was the thermal imaging from the helicopters that worried him more. The canopy above was thick, a chaotic weave of vines and leaves that blocked out the starlight, but thermal cameras could punch through gaps if they weren't careful. "We need mud," Mateo said, holstering his pistol and kneeling. He dug his gloved hands into the slurry at the base of the tree. It was cold, filled with decaying matter. "On your face, on your neck, cover the skin. It hides the heat, it hides the shine." Leo hesitated, revulsion flickering across his face, but he knelt. He began to smear the dark sludge over his cheeks, masking his identity, erasing the boy he was yesterday. Mateo did the same, coating his exposed arms and face until he looked like a creature born from the soil itself. They were becoming part of the landscape, shedding their humanity to survive in the wild. They pushed deeper. The path, an old drug runner's trail known only to the veterans, was treacherous. Roots slick with moss acted like tripwires. The incline was steep, dragging them down toward the darker, denser valleys behind the two brothers' peaks. Every step was a battle against gravity. Mateo led, his eyes scanning the gloom for disturbed foliage or tripwires left by previous factions. This forest was a graveyard of old wars. Unexploded ordnance and rusted traps lay beneath the ferns, waiting for the careless. 20 minutes into the descent, Mateo froze. He held up a fist. Leo stopped instantly, almost slipping. Silence. Then the snap of a twig. Not from an animal. This sound moved against the end. It came from their left flank, about 50 meters up the slope. Mateo signaled Leo to get low, pushing the boy into the hollow of a rock formation. Mateo melted into the shadows of a fern cluster, raising his rifle. Through the iron sights, the forest was a wall of black and gray. He waited. His heart rate slowed, a physiological trick learned over decades of violence. He became a stone. A beam of light sliced through the rain, a tactical flashlight. It swept over the trees, illuminating the falling droplets like diamonds. Behind the light, a silhouette emerged, black tactical gear, no insignia. Not a regular soldier, a mercenary, a tracker. The figure moved slowly, weapon raised, scanning the ground. He was looking for boot prints. Mateo shifted his aim. He could take the shot, center mass, easy. But a shot would echo for miles. It would tell the helicopter exactly where they were. It would bring the pack. The beam swept closer, inching toward the rock where Leo was hiding. Mateo saw the boy squeeze his eyes shut, holding his breath. The light touched the toe of Leo's boot. The tracker stopped. The mercenary adjusted his grip on his rifle, leaning forward. He had seen something. Mateo didn't fire. Instead, he reached for a jagged rock on the ground beside him. With a smooth, underhand motion, he tossed it hard to the right, 20 meters away, into a dense thicket of bamboo. Clack! Thump! The sound was sharp. The tracker spun instantly, his light jerking toward the noise. "Contact right," a voice crackled from the mercenary's radio, low and distorted. The beam focused on the bamboo. The tracker moved toward the distraction, stepping away from Leo. Mateo waited until the man was 10 meters clear, his back fully turned. He rose from the mud like a phantom. He holstered the rifle and drew his combat knife. It was rusted, ugly, but sharp. He moved silently, the rain masking his footsteps. He didn't kill the man. Killing left a body, and bodies were clues. Instead, he slipped past him, grabbing Leo by the collar and dragging him deeper into the abyss of the ravine. They slid down a mudslide, tumbling silently into the roaring darkness of a stream below. They were alive, but the hunt had only just begun. The forest was vast, but tonight it felt like a cage.